Howdy, humans. How's it going? Welcome back to another episode of the Alter Your Health podcast. This is your source of information and inspiration to promote the holistic transformation of your health and the health of our planet. And I'm your host. My name is Dr. Benjamin Alter. It is nice to connect with you, nice to see you again, nice to hear you again, or I guess I'm not hearing you, you're hearing me. But hopefully it's nice for you to hear me again. And if it's your first time hearing me, welcome. It's good to have you. This podcast is all about health. It's all about wellness. It's all about life. It's all about living our best lives. And obviously we need to take care of our physical vessel, our body, our temple, in order to manifest and express to our fullest potential. And so that's what it's all about in my life. And I love supporting people in achieving and maintaining optimal health by discovering and healing the root causes of illness, whether it's in the physical dimension with regard to nutrition or other aspects of lifestyle that might be sabotaging our experience of health, or maybe it's beyond the physical. Maybe it's in the realms of our mind and our mindset and our emotions and our spiritual connection that's really limiting or interfering with our experience of holistic health in this world. But anyways, that's what I'm all about. And this conversation kind of points in that direction as well. We tie together the physical manifestation of health as kind of the entry point into spiritual awareness, spiritual development, spiritual cultivation, a meditation practice, really like what happens after you clean up your body and clean up your life. Then what, right? This conversation with my dear friend Michael, who is really an inspirational figure in my life. I kind of look up to him as a role model. What came out of my mouth just a few moments ago is that he's like my spirit animal. And what I mean by that is he is a very archetypical expression of fiery Sagittarius doing great things in the world. And that really inspires me because I'm also a Sagittarius. I feel fire lighting up inside of me all the time. And I also feel like I'm kind of like caging it in, playing it small sometimes. And Michael, he's not playing it small in this life. So in this conversation, we talk about his struggle with drugs and alcohol. I'm calling it a struggle. It doesn't seem like it was so much of a struggle for him, but that chapter of his life. We talk about genital herpes and how that has been a learning experience for him throughout this physical life. We talk about his deep dive into yoga and meditation. We talk about his, now expression as a photographer, as a meditation coach, and how he relates to entrepreneurs in a way that supports them in connecting with themselves, connecting with a mindful presence that they are. And anyways, it's just a joy to talk to this guy. You guys, you're in for a treat. So this guy, Michael Fireborn, we connected actually, I think it was 8 years ago or maybe 9 years ago even. And he actually, at that point in time, had long dreadlocks like myself at the time. His were much longer. That was maybe another reason why he was a role model of mine. And he was also hardcore into raw veganism. And that was another passion of mine at the time. And he was also into this bhakti yoga. So that's where we connected. We connected in the realm of bhakti yoga and breath work. And, he's been in my life to some degree ever since then. And actually, he helped create the Alter Health logo. That is the work that Michael Fireborn supported us with. He is also a graphic designer and web developer of sorts. However, he is stepping into his role of a photographer and coach. But he's got a lot of skills. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. So I want to give Michael a fair introduction. He has authored a book. It's called Begins with Love, Ends with Happiness. He is a meditation coach and photographer based in Long Beach, California. Hasn't always been based in Long Beach, California. He was a van lifer, vagabondy kind of guy for, maybe a year, maybe more than that. But Michael he spent the past decade or so of his life dedicating most of his time toward personal development in the realm of spiritual exploration and physical health. What Michael is most passionate about these days is working with entrepreneurs, like I said, to help them find balance in both their personal and professional lives, Whether you're working with Michael as a photographer or a meditation coach, it's clear he is here to help his clients shine brilliantly in front of the camera and in life. I really love that. I think it's awesome what Michael is doing as a photographer. And if you'd like to follow him, see his work, you can head to www.michaelfireborn.com to check out his website. And you can find him on Facebook and Instagram at Michael Fireborn. And I honestly don't want to waste too much more time introducing this fantastic human being. I think that this conversation that we have speaks for itself. Talk about his life, talk about his journey, talk about the journey of being a human being, what it's all about. And I don't know what else to say, you guys. I think you'll enjoy it. I think you'll get something out of it. And if you would be so kind, and if this kind of stuff does resonate with you, please feel free, if you haven't already, just hit the subscribe, hit the like, hit the share, leave a comment or a review or something like that. I really love that kind of outward validation. I should say, like, my ego really loves that, but also, my soul does too, you guys. It does. I take it constructively and use it to grow and evolve on a soul level. At least, my ego is telling me that. Anyways, I'm gonna stop blabbering. I'm going to take a breath, I'm going to put my feet on the ground, and maybe you can join me in doing that, because this is a real deep, heartful conversation, and I hope you enjoy. Here we go with my friend, Michael Fireborn. Well, Michael Fireborn, welcome to the Alter Your Health podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Ben. So happy to be here.
Yeah, so happy to catch up, like we were just saying. And also, I feel like your life, I don't know it all that well, but it seems like there have been it's like a real saga, lots of chapters, lots of stories, and it's all leading into a really kind of ever expanding expression of who you are. And I'd love to just know it a little bit more completely. And so if you were to share your story, where would you start?
Gosh, if I had my, it's funny, if I had my choice, I guess it would be where I was. I literally yesterday just kind of had this little smirk come across my face, and I just got this little glimpse of this wise old man.
So you start at the end?
Yeah, start at the end. Yeah.
Right.
No, man. I really, really, really was just, I was actually coming out of meditation, and I was just sitting there kind of coming back, and this thought and this feeling came over me of, all the things that have happened in my life and everything that's transpired to get me to where I am. And we could talk about some of that, but all of it means something, and it's for some purpose, And I just think about all the teachers that I've had along the way, and all the little cosmic nudges I've had along the way, and all the angels that have showed up in my life and given me support when I needed it. And when I just thought things were a little bit too much, I couldn't take it, I got some push, And I started to think about all those teachers that have been in my life and all these old wise men. And I really, really had this feeling and this thought come over me. It's like, I will be so fortunate at the end of my life, not to say that, we don't all carry some wisdom right now, but I just sitting there as a wise old man, really being able to share something with the people that are coming up, because I really feel like, the whole mystery of life and the whole purpose of it is to figure out why we're here, and once we start to kind of get some wisdom, once we start to get an idea of, what our purpose is individually, and see how we align ourselves with nature, then we can share that with other people. And so that's everything. Mm-hmm. But to start this conversation, I guess I'll just give you a really quick intro to myself and the people, because you kind of know me already and stuff. But then it just will give people a little outline of myself. And
as I've already kind of alluded to, there's many different sides of you. So
yeah,
I know some of the sides more so than others, but share with me the totality.
Okay. Well, when you met me, I was going by Brother Echo, and I've been through a few name changes in my life. Now I go by my given birth name, Michael, and my chosen surname or last name, Fireborn, Sagittarius, fire dragon in Eastern astrology. Born in 1976 in Iowa, an Air Force parents. We moved around a little bit, grew up in Washington State. In my elementary school years, I had a different elementary school every year. So I got, from an early start, I got an opportunity to be in different economic neighborhoods around different racial and cultural backgrounds, different neighborhoods. I got a lot of eclectic diversity as far as who I was hanging out with. And looking back now, I can really attribute that to my ability to be able to kind of, mold to the environment that I'm in and relate to pretty much anybody, find some common ground. In any case, moved around a lot when I was young. Finally, like in high school, I moved around a little bit, but I started hanging out with kind of rougher crowd, relatively rougher, because like I'm living in Washington State. It wasn't like Compton, So, I started hanging out with, kids, and, you start getting into stuff when you're a teenager, and I started getting a little bit of trouble. Like we were stealing cars, and started smoking pot, and
stealing cars. I mean, just a little bit of trouble, just Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah, and so I got put in juvie, and I got put on house arrest and all this kind of stuff, and then started drinking and stuff like that. Kind of fast forwarding a little bit here, I got through that little rough patch. I was like, what am I going to do? I ended up moving from Washington State to Arizona. Went to school. As a career path, I chose graphic design and web design. Now I'm doing photography. This is all kind of like that. But got into college and completely sobered up, was on the straight and narrow, and was just, doing my school thing. And then as soon as I graduated, I got a job at a nightclub. And then that's kind of when the dark, what is it called? The Dark Night of the Soul chapter started,
So you had kind of the troublemaker childhood youth, and then cleaned up, and then dove back in like a new way.
Yeah. Well, it was like, okay, somehow, we can talk ourselves into things sometimes. Like, well, if I do this, like last night, I talked myself into, because I had a long day of photo shoots and stuff, and I was on the way back home, and I was like, maybe I'll stop at Carl's Jr. because I heard they have the Beyond Burger there now. That's like the faux burger. But I don't eat that kind of stuff really, But I was like, you know what? Instead, I'll wait till I get home, and I have this new vegan Ben & Jerry's ice cream. So that was my treat. My point is, we can kind of talk ourselves into something, and subconsciously or consciously. And so for myself, it was like, I think subconsciously, I said, oh, if I could just get through college. And once I get through college, then I can kind of let the party animal out again. And I think that's exactly what happened. So I got I graduated college and got a job at a nightclub, and everything was going great. But then it just kind of slowly started, from one thing to another, from taking ecstasy and just drinking pretty much every weekend. And then I started getting into harder drugs, cocaine, which eventually turned in, I had a little chapter of methamphetamines there, which really I didn't consciously make that choice, but like the drug dealers were switching stuff up. So they would, like cut the coke with meth. And next thing you know, I'm just all over the place, And man, it was a really dark time. I mean,
So how many years are we talking, after college?
That was less than 2 years. Yeah. So, and it escalated and escalated and kept escalating, so it wasn't like the whole time I was like really doing hardcore drugs, but it all over that, year and a half, it just kind of kept escalating, drinking more. And then the crowd, the people I was hanging out with, I kept surrounding myself with a lower vibratory frequency crowd of people, And, so I hit rock bottom, and my family came out to Arizona and got me out to California. And I had a couple little rough patches there with drinking. I still wasn't finished with drinking alcohol. And then, I had this experience, I had this really beautiful experience. One of my sisters was vegan at the time. She still is, actually. And she got me looking into the raw food diet and all this stuff. This is the birth of Brother Echo. And I started experimenting around with it. And I was watching this documentary with David Wolf, and it's called I think it's called Raw for Life. And it gets to a part of this documentary, and David Wolf is talking about diabetes. And he starts to mention all the symptoms of diabetes. And at this time, I had all these symptoms. Like, I mean, I was getting up like 4 times a night to go pee. And I was like, why am I'm, so young. Why am I having to urinate 3-4 times a night? It's not making any sense. And as I'm watching this documentary, when David Wolf is going into the story and all these symptoms, it just hit me. And I stood up in my chair. This is like 2:00 in the morning, and I just passed out. And, 30 seconds later or whatever, I wake up and our dog Tazzy is licking my face and barking. And I stand up and walk out of my office, and I walk across the hall into the bathroom, and I look in the mirror, and it's just like everything got clearer, not clearer, but clearer. And I was like, oh my God, just this real awakening around food and how I feed my body. And that's what started the birth of Brother Echo and me becoming like a raw food and juicing guy, which eventually I ended up, owning a food truck and a juice truck and a standalone juice shop in Hollywood, which was really successful, still open today, but I sold my share of the company a couple of years after starting it. And, long story short, that whole health journey got me into yoga, and then getting into the, asana practice of yoga, which is what, Western American yoga is, which we should probably just call aerobics. But it got me into the Western yoga. And then by chance, I was at a old raw food restaurant in Venice or Santa Monica called Revolution. I don't know.
Oh yeah. It's no longer there, unfortunately.
Yeah.
A couple years ago.
There is an Indian restaurant there though now.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I was there, and this young lady, Sarah, she said, have you ever been to Bhakti Yoga Shala? Or she said, I'm going to Bhakti Yoga Shala. And I was like, what is a Bhakti Yoga Shala? And she's like, oh my God, come with me. And so I follow her in my car, we park, and we're walking towards Bhakti Yoga Shala, and I just hear and then the doors open, and then, I became a Bhakti yogi. And so that's how I got on the path of Bhakti yoga. And then my meditation practice started really coming on there. And then everything just kind of opened up from exploring psychedelics with ayahuasca and Santo Daime and DMT, and then eventually letting all that go, and then getting really into the breath and getting super high on the breath all the time, and then letting that go, and then just this ebb and flow and back and forth. And so now I'm like right here, and there's, we're always refining and, growing and expanding. So.
Wow. You did phenomenally in summarizing all of those chapters in about 6 or 7 minutes. It's like, wow.
Yeah. I did forget to mention one thing. It just popped in my mind is a big part of the drugs for me also was one of my first sexual experiences when I was in high school was contracting genital herpes. And it's been a real big karmic predicament. Again, as a thing I got from Ram Dass, but that's what it has been, is a karmic predicament. And so a lot of the drugs and alcohol, the majority of my need to feel like I needed to depress or keep myself from examining or looking at these things, having that karmic predicament of genital herpes, the alcohol and the drugs was a big part of me not dealing with that, especially because I was still sleeping around and sleeping with women and not saying anything, which in turn, years later, I became like the voice piece for herpes. Like I couldn't stop talking about it. Everywhere I go, I'd be doing food demos in Whole Foods with, 50 people. I'm like, let's talk about herpes, And
wow, I didn't know about the herpes dimension of you.
yeah. There was that, and that's it's been like such a blessing. It really has been, because everything is energy, So there's I've been carrying this like almost parasitic kind of energy that has been siphoning away a part of me, and until I learned how to deal with it, talk about it, share, and then I got that energy back, and then that livened up and got some things in alignment for myself. And I wrote a book. It's called Begins with Love, Ends with Happiness, on Amazon, and I got to put it back on my website actually. But yeah, that's been a real blessing in my life, especially in the dynamic with me in my relationship with the feminine. and actually the masculine, learning what it means to actually to be a man and embody masculinity, and how we can heal ourselves. And I'm happy to say, like, I've been symptom free. I haven't had a herpes outbreak in over 5 years, and I don't take pills. I don't take medication. And that's a big part of that. Every part of that is because of meditation. It's like if you've got weeds in the garden, you've got to constantly be on top of those weeds. You got to constantly be picking those weeds from the garden so that you can know the difference between the weeds and the roses, because if it gets overgrown, you don't know what's what. And so that the sun gets to the soil, the water gets to the soil, so that everything is beautiful. And so when you have a herpes outbreak or any other kind of health crisis in life, I feel that it's because it's an internal thing, not necessarily everything. I'm not speaking in broad terms, but for the most part, there's everything that's manifesting outside of us, we can go inside of ourselves and heal.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, when you were talking about kind of the drugs, alcohol chapter, both, before college, and then you kind of dove back into it after college, one thing that comes to my mind, like a question, knowing that a lot of people talk about how, drugs and alcohol are not the problem, they're kind of the answer to the problem. So if there were kind of an underlying problem that the drugs and alcohol were solving, it was what would you name it or call it?
Well, if there was a problem, can you maybe say the question in a different?
Yeah. So if you're like, expressive party animal, ecstasy, drugs, alcohol kind of thing, if that was the answer to some underlying issue or,
okay. Yeah.
feeling, then what would it be?
Well, a big part, in high school and, starting to drink and smoke pot, that was just normal peer pressure stuff, right? And then when I got into Arizona in college, the big thing was really talking to women, really, and like it's just like easy icebreaker, easy like sex, really. It's just like if everybody's partying and things are just so much more. You're in your you're in your animal body, really. You're more in a lower vibratory, you're more open, and you're more animal instinctual. And it's just it's that desire and lust, and especially when you're younger and you have all that testosterone pouring through you, and then you have all the billboards and all the magazines and all the Axe body commercials telling you what a man is supposed to do, like and then all the women are circling around him. It's like, that's not what it means to be an attractive, amazing, masculine being on planet Earth. It's just for, spray your body with toxic poison and then, have women, goggling you. So, but all that stuff is programming, and I'm just like everyone else, susceptible to that programming. And so that whole journey with the drugs and alcohol, and eventually getting sober and learning from that and gaining from that and having medicine to share from that now, was a big part of me learning how to hack the system and reprogram myself.
So the drugs and alcohol were kind of like a social lubricant to just kind of get you out there and connecting and kind of connect you with your sexuality, and
definitely
that's it. Well, that's so interesting because, obviously I didn't know you went back in that chapter, but I knew you in the Brother Echo days, and I know you now, and I've always kind of seen you as this super charismatic, super connected, like if there's anyone in the world who doesn't need drugs or alcohol to like sit down and connect with people, it's you,
Yeah.
So it is interesting to hear you talk about that, which I think we could all relate to. And I think anyone who at any point in time does drink alcohol or use drugs or whatever, that's kind of an underlying desire to just like let it all down and just connect with ourselves and connect with other people. So so now you're able to do it fully. It seems like, what's your relationship to that now? Do you feel like you're always on drugs and alcohol, in the sense that you're able to like be yourself without in sobriety?
Yeah. Just before I answer that question, I just want to really emphasize how strong the influence of our culture is, because to your point, who you know me and have met me and see me as this, outgoing personality who doesn't need all this stuff. That is who I am. And that's who I've always been. But the testament to how strong the programming is can get you away from the truth of who you really are. So every little commercial and all the billboards and all the things that we see in our society that aren't serving us are really, really strong. And please don't let me forget your question. Oh yeah, I think I'm just gonna finish this point really quick. Is that the other day I was watching, I downloaded Transformers 4. And I don't know if you've seen that.
I don't even know there was 4 of them now.
yeah. I didn't either. And then I was like, Transformers 4? All right, let's
do this.
Ben, I downloaded this movie. I got some food. I had my food. I sit down on the couch, put my laptop, connected it to the big plasma TV, and I'm like, I'm just gonna turn on a movie here, let Hollywood take me away, And every once in a while it's nice to just zone out and be entertained, And I started this movie, man, and about 20 minutes into it, they have this 14 or 15-year-old girl running across this like junkyard with Transformers chasing her and her buddy Transformer. But she is doused in sweat. She's got like a little bra kind of bikini thing on, and she's like running in slow motion, and her little teenage breasts are bouncing around. And I'm like, what am I watching? This is crazy programming. It's just like, it's like, okay, we're Hollywood. We're testing the ground here, because you could definitely have not done that in like the 1960s. You know what I mean? We started kind of exploring a little bit more stuff in the 70s or the late 60s with the sexual revolution, the hippies and all that. And then we got into the 70s and things with the LSD started kind of loosening things up. And then you start to see that loosening up and reflected in TV and movies and stuff. And now here we are. And what I was watching was literally, could have been, 5-10 years ago, like an NC-17 movie. But now that NC-17 movie is now PG-13. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's just wild, man. So I just want everybody out there watching to realize how deep we are into programming, man.
It's a good point. I haven't, I every once in a while lose myself in Hollywood adventures as well. And it didn't really strike me until you brought it up that this spectrum of whatever you would call it, just
what's acceptable.
What's acceptable. It just keeps getting wider and stickier and slimier. And it's like, what the heck?
What is going on?
And it is, whether we like it or not, even the most conscious, awake human beings are susceptible to that programming.
Totally. Yeah. Which is all the more reason why meditation is so important. And, your question before I kind of touched on that last point was, how do I feel now as far as my, outgoingness and things like that? I think that was it. Like,
do you, because when I am with you, I feel like, wow, this guy is like, the epitome of what anyone who goes out and drinks and goes to the bar and does drugs. And, they're trying to be like you.
Okay.
that's my, I don't know. That's my compliment, my attempt of complimenting you.
I hear you. I totally hear you, and I agree with you. And it's not even about me. It's about a truth that's inside of all of us. Right. Because what people see in me is the potential and what is inside of themselves. It goes both ways. Like when someone's being really annoying to you, and you're like, why are you doing this? It's like, that's in you. You're seeing, they're reflecting and mirroring for you. So, it's like right now, I just feel so blessed to have had the support in my life, my family unit. We all incarnated in this lifetime together to support each other, and we've been doing a good job at it. And all the other people on the periphery of my family. And I've gotten to this point now where one of the most significant realizations that I've had in my life is I don't know anything. I really don't. None of us do. And I think that's a big part of the issues that we have with our society today, and all the symptoms that are bubbling up, with domestic violence and kids being abused and all the nonsense on TV, everything that's going on wrong is a big part that has to do with arrogance and ignorance. And I know that the remedy and the fix for that is meditation. It's a meditation practice. And you know, I just want to be clear that like meditation isn't just sitting on the cushion and, you know, following the breath. That's the start of it. But then it's taking that out into the world. It's taking that out into the world. So when you're engaging with people, that you're not being, you know, reactive, that you're present, that outgoing and enthusiastic light that shines for me when I'm in alignment and I'm out and I'm being myself and I'm not really influenced by other people and I'm confident in myself and I'm strong. That same light is in every single one of us. And it's so nice because when you meet somebody else, there's a resonance there. And that when there's that resonance, you know, like in the Bible, it says where there's two or more that gather, I'm there, in the presence of Christ. And I'm not talking about like the man, Jesus, or I'm talking about Christ, that light, the divinity, the consciousness that's in each one of us, you know? Yeah. Yeah, I'm really, when I'm out now and I'm in my power and myself, I love it. And I know when to turn it on and turn it off now. And that's been a big part of my work too, is not being so loud and taking over the room and being able to listen more. Another big part of my journey is that in August, I'll be 5 years celibate. So that's like a huge, I don't even know where that came from, Ben. Like where this even started. I'm like, I like sex. I like orgasms. They feel great. And all of a sudden I got this call to really bring that energy in. You know, over the past year, I traveled around in a van and I just really kept my energy to myself. And really it's been, you know, a couple of years now where I've really just kind of pulled everything in and, you know, just been really heavy on the book study and really into my meditation and yoga, you know?
Yeah. Well, you're a classic, you know, as you kind of introduced yourself, a classic fiery Sagittarius. I mean,
Yeah.
that you like, you know,
Yeah.
just the archetype.
Yeah.
And so it's like you have this extreme potential to be out in the world and to do all of the things and connect and express and create. And like that energy, it's like you've consciously controlled it and decided, I'm going to keep it into myself and see what happens. And it seems like you're harnessing it, you're mastering it, and you're letting it out very, very mindfully, you know, in the proper ways to, you know, do good in the world through all of the avenues that you do. Which, you know, I think a lot of people don't have that. Well, maybe, you know, not all of us have that, you know, baseline energy, you know, fiery energy potential to begin with. And I think a lot of people are trying to, you know, scrape that together, you know, like, where can I get this inspiration, this enthusiasm, this motivation? But it's like, it seems to be very much inherent in who you are. It's there, it's in you. And it's just a matter of how it's going to go out into the world.
Yeah, you know, I'll go ahead.
Well, you know, I definitely want to dive deeper into like meditation stuff and how that has been supporting you and how you feel it supports people in all avenues of life. But I also, you know, at some point before we go too far in that direction, I'd like to go back and talk a little bit, because I'm such a, you know, food man, nutrition. And that's kind of one way that we connected. We connected at Bhakti Yoga Shala, I think, like the first time. And, you know, we were both in kind of that circle of yoga and breath work and stuff. But in any case, I'm curious about that awakening moment, for lack of a better term, around like, oh my gosh, food is, you know, I've got to, you know, really master my relationship with food and eating. And that's where it seems like you went from junk food more or less to raw vegan. And was that like a instantaneous light bulb, like out with the Carl's Jr., in with the, you know, kale shakes and stuff?
It definitely was. It was literally an overnight thing. And it was funny because I remember not really knowing what I was doing. I remember I was at my mom's house using her Blendtec blender. And I went to Lassen's, this health food store up here. And I was like, I need to make a smoothie, you know, because I'm like, okay, blending is what it's all about now. And I bought all these green vegetables and a portobello mushroom. And I get back to my mom's and I'm blending up like kale and whatever else and a portobello mushroom, man. And it was so gross. It was just awful.
Yeah,
And
where'd you get that recipe?
I just like was trying to make stuff up, And
Yeah.
so, so in any case, it was an overnight thing for sure. And it was just the most beautiful thing about it is it was so clear. It was so clear, and there was no like I'm like having to fight wanting to get a burger or anything
Yeah.
else. It was just clear as day because I just saw the connection of my vitality and my energy, my longevity is literally through what I'm putting into my body. And I was just talking with my sister, one of my sisters the other day. I was like, wow, we've really lost touch as animals, as we're these spiritual beings in these animal bodies. And, what we're putting into our mouth, and I love culinary cuisine and food and good stuff, but it is just for energy. It's for energy for our body so that we can get out here and explore and have experiences, grow as human beings. It's not necessarily for social activities, which we turn it into, and it's not necessarily for enjoyment. And I think that was a real big part of that awakening is the realization that this is the necessity of energy that I need to be out here in the world and learning and growing. So I didn't have any trouble. Like it was just clear, and I got right into it.
Yeah.
I got on YouTube videos and books and stuff.
You didn't need a health coach or like
No,
boot camp or
no.
did you experience any detox symptoms or like
Oh yeah.
what was that like? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest I think thing for me was like I like to jump into things like again, Fireborn,
All in.
Fire Dragon, yeah, all in, man.
All in.
So I was going extreme, like water fast for a week and not knowing what to be. So I was like water fasting and still jogging and exercising and doing push-ups and all this stuff. So I experienced a lot of kickback because I was just experimenting with things without, like I'd read something, I'm like, okay, got it. And then, I'd read like a paragraph out of, a thing that's I should have read 2 chapters on or something. But that's just, who I am. And, and then I would, do, enemas and doing colonics and the juice cleanses and stuff like that. I, experienced, the, detoxing symptoms, from coming off of, just tons of stuff in my body that, was there from before. And, especially, having used all those drugs and stuff, my liver had a lot of work. Oh man, I had a really crazy health crisis, with my liver. I did, this, beet juice protocol out in Arizona, and I was just drinking beet juice for 2 days. And actually it was only a day and a half into, this protocol. And I was out in Arizona visiting, this lady, Happy Oasis. She used to put on these events called the Raw Food Festival or it was Raw Food Festival. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. But I was out there visiting her, helping her get ideas together before they were like producing this, building this thing up. And man, I had this health crisis on a mountain bike. I was taking a little break, riding around in nature around this lake, and like everything came out. It was just like intense.
Yeah, well, so health crisis, everything came out. Would you
Yeah.
like to elaborate a little bit?
I think your viewers can get everything came out and in the middle of nowhere. So I had to like just find a bush and like puking and
Both ends.
sweating. Yeah, it was. But and then I got on the bike and got back and then more and then I laid down and rested and then when I got back up, that was great. It's like I felt like my pores were open. Like my body was breathing. And the beet protocol was huge because as beet juice is like super super good for the liver and cleaning up the blood and all those drugs with the especially like all of it the liver has to process it and all that alcohol. So the one of the strongest organs we have is our liver, and that liver got what it needed to start pushing stuff out and start regenerating.
Wow. Yeah. So you were like, yeah, gung ho, 2 feet in all the way. Never, it wasn't, I think a lot of people just kind of tiptoe into their, raw veganism or just healthy living in general, but
Yeah.
you were 2 feet in. And then it seems like you had the same kind of relationship and diving into yoga and your meditation practice. It wasn't like, oh, I'll, download this app and do like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
nothing wrong with that.
Right.
Everybody's where they're at.
totally. But so, fast forward, actually, another thing that I'd like to know a little bit more about is the Brother Echo thing. And like
Mm,
the YouTube, you had a big YouTube thing before like big YouTube things were cool. And,
mm-hmm,
so you were like this personality and like people knew you all over the world and stuff. And
mm.
so like, where did that inspiration come to start a YouTube channel and do this thing before it was
Yeah.
something that was like a normal thing for
Mm,
human beings to do?
mm-hmm. Yeah, first of all, the name Echo came from when I was living in Arizona. I was still partying, and we were at this girl's house. These roommates, these two girls, and it was 3 o'clock in the morning or whatever. And this was an after party, and I was sitting with all these people, and I think where everybody sit around just kind of smoking pot or whatever. And I started telling them this really funny story, which I won't go into, but everybody started laughing, and this guy ran out of the room, and he came back in with a flyer for a comedy contest. And he's like, "Dude, you've got to do this contest." And I was like, "All right, stand-up comedy." I did stand-up comedy for like 2 years actually,
Hmm.
and then that was the beginning of it. So I got this flyer, and then I went to Rocky Point, Puerto Penasco, Mexico, in between the contest and the time at this party. And I met a girl down there named Echo. And then I came back and this comedy contest was coming up. And I was like, you know what? I need a stage name. And that Echo was still in my head. And I was like, oh, yeah, Echo, Echo, Echo. Echo sounds cool. And so my comedy stage name was Echo Brown. That was my like Hollywood stage name. So years later, back in getting sobered up, healthy, and all this, that's how the name Brother Echo came, because Echo still stuck, and so Brother Echo came. And the brother part was I saw on another flyer for the Raw Spirit Fest. There was another guy who was a teacher, and it was like Brother something or other. And I was like, oh, Brother Echo. Okay, that feels nice.
I'll steal that girl's name and that guy's name.
Steal that guy's name. Yeah, boom. And we're always borrowing stuff from each other, And so, and then when I started the YouTube channel, I'm pretty sure it was because I saw like Dan, the Life Regenerator, who maybe I gotta imagine he's still on YouTube.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, Ben, as I do, like 7 years ago or 8 years ago, whenever we first met, like the raw vegan movement was, I mean, huge. I mean,
Especially
it was
in LA. Yeah, in LA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was crazy. And so I was like, oh wow, I think I want to start making videos. And I went to the Raw Bazaar, which was an event in LA, once a month event. And I remember seeing a flyer, and I saw maybe one little short video on YouTube. And I was like, I probably can do better than that. So I had like a little cheap handheld camera, and I went and recorded. And then I got back home and I edited it and I put that up on YouTube. By the way, I have like 500 videos that are all out there, but I hid them all on my old.
Oh, so they are still there. They're just hidden.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And, so
maybe you can like peek one out once a week or something.
Yeah, maybe. I think actually eventually I will do something like that. But yeah, looking back now, it is nice because I get to see all the stuff still and like the growth and how fast the growth was, But that was a really fun time. I mean, especially in LA, like how people really got turned on to health consciousness around food.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so from the food into the yoga, I'm always interested in this kind of, this way that cleaning up our bodies, our vessels, guides us spiritually into who we truly are. And it seems like that was very much your experience. And so you had this, this process of cleaning up your vessel, and then you were at Revolution, and you were guided into Bhakti Yoga Shala, and that was another kind of 2 feet in experience of just, here I am. I'm diving into this next chapter. And it seems like it really was like a very like, all right, like food, like that's important stuff, but it just seems like it was a gateway drug or something to like the trueness of your spiritual connection and practice and meditation. So what tell me about that kind of experience of diving 2 feet into something new, and then the process of like letting go of this kind of Brother Echo facade, which I think you had like several thousand followers and stuff on the YouTube, and lots, thousands of views. And like, what was the process of just like, oh, that's not me. What the heck is this?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the food was definitely the path to clearing up this. It's like it's all energy, and we're in these vehicles, and these vehicles are essentially an antenna to receive from the world and the influences that we can't see with our physical eyes, the things that are coming from spirit. And so when we start to clear up our antenna, we start to clear up our vehicle, we start to become more receptive. We become clearer. And it's interesting because the clearer you begin to become as a vehicle, as a being, as a human being, as your consciousness begins to clear up, you start to receive more, and you're starting to see yourself clearer even more, and what is blocking you. And so when you're getting clearer, it's just like a exponential process of, okay, now I can pull this weed, pull this weed, pull this weed. So it really starts to get this momentum going. And so that's what happened with the food. The food came in, and then I started getting clearer, and I'm looking at myself, and then the people around me really started changing, and now all of a sudden I have healthier people around me. Also, in this time, I got brought into working with the plant medicine of ayahuasca, and then I joined a church of all things, the Santo Daime Church from Brazil, which their main sacrament in their works is using is daime, which is also ayahuasca, which is a really powerful, potent psychedelic. And that is a really fast way to look at some of the things that are inside of you that you're not looking at, normally. And, a lot of the culture, and a lot of, because of how the news and, politics paint what ayahuasca or psychedelics are, people view them as drugs, when they are technically drugs, but they are really spiritual tools and medicine, and people can abuse them. But the thing about like an ayahuasca or LSD or mushrooms, for that matter, is a lot of the times it's not fun. Like, you really have to look at your stuff. And so the food got me clearer, and I started opening up, and the bhakti yoga and the kirtan started to come into my life. So now I'm chanting the names of God. I'm also exploring and reading all kinds of books from other different denominations and religions around the world. Also add into that the entheogens, the psychedelics with ayahuasca, working with this medicine regularly. And now I'm really, really starting to get light. I'm really starting to get clearer. And I'm really, wow, I'm seeing the world. I'm really watching myself turn into a new person and shedding the skin of this echo guy who was great. But I've always been running from my name, Michael, my entire life. But in any case, as I started to get clearer, eventually I saw that, wow, the ayahuasca and the drugs, I don't need any of that. That's just another thing I can let go of now too. And so, long story short, the getting into this process of meditation, which is, it's yoga, union, bringing myself back to oneness. It is a constant, continual practice of refinement and subtlety, getting into something and letting it do its thing, letting it kind of self blossom, and then you get what you need from it, and then your ability and capacity to let it go. And that's happened with me from being the raw food guru guy. It's happened to me from being I started hosting ayahuasca ceremonies. I had a house in Ojai. I let all that go. I'm really ready to let the celibacy thing go pretty soon here, but it's like you're 5 years, man. You're constantly refining and learning and pushing your boundaries and seeing what is the next thing for you. And, the one thing that I really appreciate about having a practice with meditation, and it's like, it's so simple, like, 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes when you go to bed, that's the start of it. But just the effort, it's like, am I worth, and do I think that there's something that I am not connected to, but I'm committed? Because if we can sit down and watch, Netflix every night, like, why can't we sit for 10 minutes total a day? But when we do that, it's like a self-filling loop that just keeps speeding up and getting faster. And then whatever the next step is for you or for whoever is watching out there, it just naturally comes about, and you're receptive, and you don't miss it when spirit brings whatever it is into your life, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it did all start with the food, though. Yeah, 100%. It really did. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So was it, what, I guess the question that is percolating and forming in my mind is, it seems like, you've been kind of dropping and shedding this ego, for lack of a better term. Like
Right.
Brother Echo was very much a representation of ego. And it was like this kind of,
Mhm. Personality.
personality. Exactly. So now today, what is your relationship with ego, and how do you
Mhm.
relate with ego?
Mm. Yeah, I appreciate the ego. hmm I honor the ego. It's necessary. It's here. It's serving a purpose. And we've all got one. It's our roommate, the one that's in
Mm,
here, trying to keep us safe, doing its best to protect us when you go to work and you go sit down at your desk and somebody taps you on your shoulder and like, why did you know? Whatever it is, they confront you with something. Your ego is right there. Your ego's like, okay, I need to harden up and yell right back at this person. The ego is there when, you say you quit smoking. You quit smoking, you're done smoking, and then you're out somewhere and someone catches you lighting a cigarette, and your ego jumps up with a really quick excuse and starts talking before you even get a chance to think. That's the ego, right? It's doing its job. It's here to keep us safe. It's here to protect us. It's here to get us through this world. And that ego is directly connected to the thoughts that are coming from our mind. But the thing is that I am not Michael. I'm not a man. I am not this personality, no matter what name it's carrying. And I am not the thoughts that are stimulated from the circumstances of this life that come from the mind. That's just a continual, nonstop, everlasting flow of energy of thoughts that are dictated by what's happening outside of myself. Who I am and who you are. When I say I am and you say I am, it's the same one. And so that ego that is filtering the I am, or the consciousness that you and I and everyone watching is, the light, the Christ, whatever you want to call it. The ego that's in front of that is filtering that, and then whatever's happening in my world, whatever the next question you ask me is, whatever it is that's out here, it's getting filtered through that ego. And so my relationship between my higher self and this ego, and the whole journey of my life, and all this meditation and all this yoga and all the good food I'm eating, it's all about clearing that lens, clearing that ego, giving that ego a nice little pat on the head, letting him know, hey, you're doing a good job out there, but you're not running the show anymore. Okay, your job is to be here so that I can experience this world. But before you speak, we're checking in. We're checking in with our higher self. We're checking in with Source, and we're checking in, and so that I'm not running through this world reactive. Yeah.
I love that relationship. I,
Yeah.
I, I love how you're talking about it. Like he's your, your teammate, your roommate.
Yeah.
And I love the quote. I forget who said it. Like, the ego is the faithful servant,
Mm-hmm.
or that's really what the ego can be. And I think that, really what I hear you saying is your practice, and what meditation has been supporting you in is really just distinguishing the ego from the rest of you, from the
Mm-hmm.
authenticity, and being able to act and speak and relate in the world, knowing exactly who is doing or what is doing, or the energy behind what is doing, and being able to tweeze it apart from this personality or this more superficial layer of I am.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's hard
Yeah.
to talk about this kind of stuff, huh?
It's fun, man. I mean, I just really it's really good. I think, and I'm hopeful that more and more conversations like this keep bubbling up. But it's like the biggest thing I get from meditation is number one, it's not a chore for me anymore, because I see how important it is, and I see direct results. And the biggest thing that you get from it, that we get from it, is there is the sitting down that has to be done, but that is just the like entry level part, because what that does is it gets you ready for your life. So when, you know, if you're running a business, if you're a business owner, if you're an entrepreneur, it's like when you're sitting down across from this person that could be a potential multi-million-dollar investor for your company, or if you want to start a new business or a new adventure and you've already got a business going, like you need to be able to be present, to show up. And if your mind is just, you know, being reactive and over-examining and second guessing, like, what does this mean? Why did he sit this way? Or why is she, I'm talking now, why did she yawn? You know, all those little things, you know what I mean? It's like, if you're not present, you're going to miss out. And so the biggest thing about meditation is you're able to pay attention. And when spirit brings something into your life, you hear it, you're ready, and you're ready to do the dance. And like Ram Dass says, this is the only dance there is. It's the greatest dance of all. And it's this life. We're so blessed to be here, but so many of us are running on someone else's program. We're running on someone else's idea of what it means to be a human being, what it means to be happy. And life isn't necessarily about the things that a lot of us think is important. It's what we've been told is important. And, you know, once we start to go into ourselves, our whole perspective on life may change.
Hmm. I love how you are translating the meditation into your life, because I think that translation from the sitting down, the being quiet, the focusing on breath into the rest of the world is really a place where a lot of people get hung up. Because I know a lot of people who've got a meditation practice, and, you know, maybe it's an hour a day, or maybe it's an hour twice a day, and they sit down and they live their life, and then they, you know, are in a traffic jam, or someone calls them a bad name, or something happens and they're reactive. And it's like, a lot of people can easily jump to this conclusion of, oh, I just need to meditate more, or I need to, you know, do 2 hours a day instead of 1 hour a day, or I just need to do more. But really what I hear you saying, and what I really resonate with as well, is really, it's just a matter of translating that experience into the rest of your life. And rather than, you know, compartmentalizing these practices, but living in a meditative state rather than meditating.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, this whole life is yoga. It's the whole point of it is coming back to God, coming back to oneness, all of us. And, you know, it's like, you know, a lot of people have an idea, you know, the quote unquote, you know, Christian, whatever that means now, because there's like 200 denominations, 300 denominations of Christian or whatever. But there's this idea that heaven is outside of us. But I mean, in the Bible, Luke 17:20, I think, it says the kingdom of God is within you, right? And the thing is, it's like we're looking at and we're hypothesizing about what paradise is, what heaven is, what God is. We're hypothesizing and making all these assumptions from a place of ignorance and a place of arrogance and a place of a level of conscience that doesn't have it together. And heaven is not going to be somewhere out there. Heaven is the kingdom of God. Heaven is inside of us. And I always ask people this question: is heaven going to be heaven if your mom doesn't get there, if your brother doesn't get there, if your neighbor doesn't get there? So in my book, there's no heaven unless we all get there. And so this whole meditation movement, which is, you know, just a part of yoga, the meditation, it's really about the yoga and the movement of life. How can we be in this world where we're not causing ripples of anger, of hate, of fear? How can we contribute and leave this world a better place? How can we exemplify and live as a Christ or a Buddha or a Krishna? How can we show up and be the light, you know, without making things in the world worse than they are, but actually making things better? And a big part of that whole movement is being able to look inside yourself, check in every day, let go of the things that have happened during that day, all the stuff that we encounter, and clean the slate. So when you wake up in the next morning, you get your day started, it's a new day. You're starting with a new slate, you know. But we tend to carry things over from day to day. We tend to have resentments, you know, even in our partners we live with. We'll carry something. You didn't put the toilet seat down again. I told you, you must be doing it on purpose. You know, so we get these.
How'd you know?
Yeah, we get these stories going in our head. You know, it's like, I thought I asked you to lock the door. Lock the door when you leave. You keep leaving it open. Are you doing this on purpose? We get all these stories going in our head, and these stories aren't based in anything. It was just a part of our mind that we're just getting kind of reeled into. But when we learn that the mind is going to do its thing and we got to let it do its thing and we can watch it, that's when our life starts to change, you know?
Oh yeah. So question for you. You talked about, you know, this practice of sitting down as being like a fundamental, essential practice, sitting down, whatever, you know, and just being present. Do you think that it really is necessary to sit down in order to cultivate what we're talking about?
Well, I mean, to physically sit down.
Yeah, like to sit down, like to. Do we need to close our eyes? Do we need to focus on our breath? Do we need to what we would call meditate in our, you know?
It really, because meditation really, what's happening here is you're slowing down, you're watching, and that's it. You're watching, period. You're following the breath. But the idea here is what's going on is you are getting your brain waves down and down and down and down and down until there's, you know, the alpha and beta and theta, and I got them mixed up. I don't know them off the top of my head, but the science of meditation, that's what's happening. So you're bringing your brain waves down, so your body's getting into a real vibratory resonance. And good God, I know there's people out there right now like, okay, now he's talking about vibratory resonances and we're getting into hippy dippy land. And you know what? My apologies, because I just don't know the actual order from, and like,
well, you know, from my perspective, it's actually like the opposite of hippy dippy land. It's like the scientific with like I kind of actually measure that kind of stuff. The other stuff, you know, maybe like the kingdom of heaven is within you. Maybe that's a little bit more hippy dippy. It's like, okay, like,
sure. What does that mean? Right. Okay. So thank you. That okay. It is pure, and yoga is
science.
It's called a spiritual science. But what the sitting is all about is the benefit of being able to just watch and not be distracted by the thoughts. It is literally to get the brain and your heart into a certain resonance. And in that resonance, as we talked a little bit earlier about, you know, being a receiver, or your body is an antenna, then your intuition turns on and things start to change for you. You're all of a sudden, you've got a little idea about something you wouldn't have had before. This is after meditation, of course, you know, after sitting. But to answer your question, you really have to sit and slow your breath and bring your body into a certain resonance instead of it just being always just kind of reactive, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that, you know, if we look at it, you know, I guess what my viewpoint on it is like in our world today, like, yes, I think 99.9 to 100% of people need to sit in order to experience that. Given the state of our world today, given the movement, given the screens, given the, you know, influx of information, and given the craziness that's happening energetically and through our thoughts and through the media and all of that, I think that more drastic, you know, physical actions are needing to be taken in order to cultivate a spiritual connection and clean out that antenna and align with that energy that's always present. And I sometimes think like, you know, maybe, you know, I don't know, maybe historically it was more of an easy thing to cultivate that peace and that quiet and that emptiness inside. And in our world today, that's just filling up more exponentially. So wow, it is becoming a rigorous practice where it may have been in the past just kind of a natural way of being, but now it's like we're pushing up against resistance, and we have to like do it rather than just be it, you know?
Yeah. I know what you're saying. Yeah. It's like, and I think what you're saying is true, actually, that before, in times before, it was much easier because we were connected to nature. That's the ground foundation of it. We were connected to nature. We knew what it was to get and grow our own food, to get our own water, and just that general environment was more supportive of being close to nature, period. You know, because we are right now really disconnected, you know, from our houses to, you know, all these LEDs in our face all the time. And, you know, it is what it is. And again, if we look at nature, there are the seasons. You know, we're in the summertime right now and everything's peaking. I'm here in California and there's beautiful flowers everywhere. The birds are out. It's awesome. But, you know, after August, you're going to start seeing those leaves turn brown and decay. And then here comes fall and winter. And, you know, every day we go through that process. Really, in every breath, we go through the spring, the summer, the fall, and the winter, you know, every breath. And it's like, to your point about things being more supportive and whatnot in the past, right now we are, I think we're in the middle of springtime, you know, on a cosmic scale and as a family of human consciousness. And we're all getting, I mean, look at how much we've evolved socially as, you know, blacks and whites drinking from water fountains, interracial couples, gay people being able to get married and this and that. So we are definitely improving. Things are definitely getting better. Our technology seems to be like going way faster than our social stuff, but we're getting there. But to your point, things were one way in the past, and now we have this resistance because there is this birthing happening right now. But it's nature, and when you start to see the connection of nature, it's like, you know, this too will pass. I'll share a really good story with you. Hopefully, I can remember it.
All right.
Yeah.
No pressure.
Yeah.
Just, you know, perk up your antenna so you can receive it really nicely.
I just heard this one, so it's pretty fresh in the mind. So there is a king, and he's a new king, and he's like taking over these lands, and he's rounding up the old guard that used to be in these new lands that he's in. So he gets all these people together, and he ends up getting this group of wise men, and he gets these wise men, and he's like, execute them. And he says, you know, and they're like begging for their lives, these wise men. And he says, you know what, all right, I'll give you a chance. And what I'll do is I'll let you have one night to sleep on it. And when I see you tomorrow, I want you to tell me something that whenever I get upset, whenever I get angry, it'll make me happy. And so the three wise men, they go to their jail cell or dungeon or whatever, and they're thinking all night, and they're like going through all the motions. And finally the next day comes, and the three wise men come to the king, and then one of the wise men hands them this cushion with this big shiny ring on it, and the king grabs it and like, well, I don't know, how's this going to make me happy? And then they ask him, like, please read the inscription of the ring. And he reads the inscription, and the inscription says, this too shall pass. So everything is impermanent. So whenever he's angry, you know, he can look at that ring, this too shall pass. Whenever he's upset, whenever something bad happens to him, this too shall pass. And I just thought that was a really beautiful story. And it really, you know, makes the point about nature and how things are always changing, things are always moving. You don't want to grab on and cling to anything, whether that's a new love in your life or you got a new job, a new car, because, you know, this too shall pass. And that is the kicker of it. You know, when you're upset and you're angry, this too shall pass. But when you have all these wonderful, beautiful things that happen, guess what? This too shall pass, you know? So it's like, that's where you want to be. That's that yoga. You know, there is a resistance right now of us growing spiritually and doing the meditation and having to get into these practices. But that resistance to sitting, that resistance to getting into your practice, that resistance will pass. And then you'll just be centered. And centered's where the whole game is. That's what it's all about. It's like, you know, I was talking with somebody the other day, and actually, it was my sister. And she had some resistance to what I said. And I said, Marlena said, God, what we think of as God and what we think of as the devil, it's the same thing. And people watching might have a little resistance to that, but it's our human minds are judging a power. We're judging a power of creativity that creates. It has no personality. It creates to create, because that's what this is, creation. And just like this light right here that's shining on me, this power from this light, that power, it's indifferent. It is light. And the difference between me trying to hook up the power in this light and rig up this entire condominium with electric wiring and outlets to channel the power, like if I did it, I could burn this complete whole building down because I don't know what I'm doing with the power. But an electrician who knows how to handle the power, who knows what power is, can wire this place so that it's lit up beautifully, so that we can communicate, so that we can talk, and it's all awesome. So, you know, the God and devil being the same thing, two sides of the same coin, everyone has a shadow. A lot of people don't want to deal with that, but that's where the beautiful things, that's where peace is at. That's where tranquility is at. That's where there is no resistance. It's being right there. You know what I mean? This too shall pass. This too shall pass. This too shall pass. Yeah.
It reminds me of the story at the beginning of this conversation about this fiery energy inside of you and how it has gone into, we'll call them negative patterns or habits or tendency.
Yeah.
It has gone into positive, we'll call it, habits and tendencies and behaviors. And it is, you know, the devil and the angel, and or whatever you want to call it, the dark and the light, the shadow and the, you know, it's all you. It's all Michael.
Yeah.
It's all you.
Totally.
So you know, I'd love to kind of wrap things together here, even though we could go on and on and on and on. But you know, given this tendency of yours to jump 2 feet into things and just embrace it and just be all in and all present, you know, it seems like that's what you've done with photography and videography now, maybe, or correct me if I'm wrong. And if it is, like, tell me about that experience of jumping in. And if it's not, what else are you jumping into, like, in your life next? What does it feel like?
Yeah, right now, real big focus for me is photography. Video stuff is, it's kind of on the back seat, but I'm really interested in doing more with that. But right now, it's like really hone in and focus in on the photography. And man, then I'm just like getting super busy out here. Like yesterday, I was just driving around all day, and I got back here, and I'm like, you know, I hadn't really eaten anything, and I'm just like, because I mentioned I was gonna stop at a Carl's Jr. I was like, let me get home. I mean, I eat the same thing every night. It's like Brussels sprouts, some kind of, you know, cruciferous. Is that right? Cruciferous vegetable?
Well, Brussels sprouts are
cruciferous. Yeah. Cruciferous vegetable with a leafy green and either rice or quinoa and beans. That's every night. So I was like, in any case, the photography is like I'm really passionate about it, and I'm getting really good at it. That's like, because like anything, you know, you study and you put your time and you get better at it. And so watching my progress, and now my calendar is filled up for the rest of this month and into next month, and I'm feeling really fulfilled, you know, like, and that's a good place to be. And so now for me, feeling fulfilled as far as like being busy and helping people, you know, see themselves in a new light and, you know, all this kind of stuff. It's like, now how do I kind of scale that up to the next level? Like, what's the next level for me? Because the photography for me is just a gateway and entry. Hello, hi. It's like extra credit, icing on the cake, because what I really am passionate about is working with entrepreneurs around meditation and how I can help them really stay centered and stay balanced around their family life, around their business, and maybe if they're working on getting into a new relationship, whether that's a romantic relationship or because there's a lot of people out there kind of, you know, alone, like they don't know how to make friends, you know. And I, like you said earlier, you know, from the outside, to a lot of people, it's like, wow, this guy's really outgoing, and, you know, like I can just walk up to people and start talking, and I often do. And I know that about myself now, and I know how to coach people through that, you know, having a little bit more self-confidence and having the ability to actually jump both feet into, you know, it's not that scary, especially once you know, get out of your mind and stop hypothesizing about what the future is going to hold and just be present here right now.
So
Yeah.
talk me through how the photography intersects and entangles with the kind of relationship coaching, mindfulness coaching, confidence coaching. I
Yeah.
could kind of vaguely see it because I think that being in front of a camera, in my experience, it does bring up a lot of these issues. So I trust that your, presence behind the lens is supportive,
Yeah.
but talk with me more of how that looks to
Mhm.
clients and in your work.
Well, when I'm working with somebody, a big part of it, is for me to be able to be a good listener and to be present. Because it's really easy to come in and like have a lot of ideas about how I want to shoot because, as a photographer, maybe you want to see certain things in your portfolio or you want to you want to get this kind of shot. But if somebody's hiring me, like I'm getting ready to work with a new guy doing photos for a dating website for his online dating profile. I really have to show up like in our pre phone conversation. It's like, well, what do you like to do? Well, he's in piano, he's an engineer, and I can't remember what else. But there's that initial conversation, and it's like, oh, okay. So now, like, oh wow, how could I help him shine as a piano player and look really interesting and inviting? Where somebody sees that picture, it's like I could see myself sitting next to him on the piano and us playing a song together. You know what I mean? So being able to be present and listen to this guy and every client and hearing what they do, what they want, what their desires, their needs are, and being able to translate that in through a picture that's whatever it is, the end that they want, so that I can help them get the result. So at the end of the day, me being a photographer and a coach, it's being able to help my clients get the results that they're after. And also through the coaching is being able to help them let go of some of the things that are kind of blocking them from really seeing clearly what is going to be beneficial for their life, Yeah.
We've got to get you out to Colorado.
Yeah.
Experience some of this stuff firsthand. I mean, for real. But I know you're filling up in, but when you want to take a vacation to the mountains, anyway.
Yeah, for sure. We're gonna do some breath work, and we gotta have our bro hike.
Bro hike, breath work,
Yeah.
all the things. Well, I'd love to wrap up with kind of this final question that I often like to, ask people. If you could kind of, create, well, the way I'll phrase it for you, Michael, is if you could create a medicine that you could kind of encapsulate and slip into the water supply so that everyone is bathing in it and drinking it and taking it in all ways, what do you think that our human race, our society, really needs a good dose of, that you feel like you could, blast them with it?
Honestly, I wouldn't do anything. I think everything's working out exactly how it's supposed to. And if
if you say so.
and if I were, and I am, and you are, and we are God, I don't think this could have been made any better. Everything is in divine time. It's in the right place. Every relationship, every person that's watching this and resonating, every person that's watching this and kind of shaking their head in disbelief or nodding their head like, no, God and the devil aren't the same. It's all perfect. And everyone's where they're at. Thank God for that. And we're all going to get to the finish line. It's just we're all going to get there at different times. And so it's like I have to continually be in this humble place of knowing that there is a divine plan, and we're all getting there one step at a time. We're all kind of walking each other home,
Mm.
Yeah, I really I wouldn't change anything, really.
Oh man, you spiritual guru, you. you just let everything be the way it is, all perfect. Oh man, I should have known that answer was coming. All right, well, let it be. So okay.
Yeah, let it be, man.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So nothing's broke, everything's good. I'll take your word for it. I'll take your word.
I'm trusting that it's all good. Yeah.
I've got to, I'm trusting too, but I've got to like put on my trust hat in order to trust. Like,
yeah.
Not like an inherent, like, always present trust. But thanks for the reminder.
Yeah.
Thanks for the reminder. Yeah.
I'll play your game. Okay. Let me find one.
Honestly, your answer was probably like, the best answer I've ever heard. I mean, but
Yeah.
would like to play my game. Have at it.
Okay. Can you, one thing that I could get everybody on the same page, essentially, if I could.
But yeah, just like a medicine.
Yeah.
An insight, and that what you provided really is that. But like, what do you think that humanity, society might be deficient in, and need a little, like, supplementation of something?
Okay, I think I can respond in a way that feels right for me, and what I would like to see is, I think would be a really huge thing, is if there would just be no more imaginary lines in the map, no more flags, no more countries. In so as much as, with regard to like being able to navigate, like I'm coming to, Texas, or I'm coming to New York. But as far as our identification with being an American or being Swedish or French or Australian, if I had one wish, if I could snap my fingers and, make one thing go away, I mean, I'm sure I can think of a million things, but literally what's coming from my heart right now is for all of us to realize we're all on this planet together, and there is a family thing happening here. I just think it's kind of ridiculous that I have to take my passport out of my backpack to walk across an imaginary line, and I know people will see that and like, this is America, we've worked hard, but everybody else came from somewhere else to get here. And it's like, I just wish it was all one, that would be, I would like to see that. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that there's such a tribal nature as humans. Yeah. And, it's like, what I hear you saying is like, what if our tribe was just the human race?
Human race. Yeah.
What if it was just like one tribe?
That's it. Yeah.
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 Against the aliens. Yeah. Against whatever. Because there's always going to be against something.
Something else. There was a speech that Ronald Reagan did back in the 80s that he said something like that. And he says, maybe what we need is an alien race to invade the planet so that we could finally come together as a people. And I was like, damn, Ronald, you're right on right there. Yeah, but maybe that is what we need. Yeah.
Bring it on, aliens.
Yeah.
All right. Well, man, Michael, it's been a real pleasure to dive into all of these things, and I think we did pretty good in terms of tying it all together, all the different facets and chapters, and great to do this.
Right on. I appreciate you, Ben and Susanna, and you guys are doing great work, and I look forward to getting out to Colorado, or you guys being out here at some point and being able to get a bite to eat.
All right. Well, peace and love, and until next time, my friends.
All right. Peace.